इमाय धम्मान धम्म प्रतिपन्नय बुद्धं पूजयामि धम्मं पूजयामि संघं पूजयामि। I worship the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha by practicing according to the teachings. May this offering be accepted. चर्चा कर रहे हैं अनात्म बोध की कि कैसे हम उसको जीवन में और अच्छी तरह से उतार पाए। इस बारे में कल चर्चा की, प्रैक्टिस के बारे में। I shared with you how our experiences can be investigated in a particular manner. जैसे मैं कह सकता हूँ कि go to the roots of the experience, या योनिसो मनसिकारा कह सकते हैं। तो मैंने आपके सामने उदाहरण के रूप में समझाया था कि मैं कैसे करता हूँ। तो आपको उचित लगे तो आप भी ट्राई कर सकते हैं। लेकिन जो प्रश्न उसमें पूछे गए थे कि who is having pain, who doesn't like it, ये सामान्य ऑर्थोडॉक्स थेरावादा में ऐसे प्रश्न नहीं पूछे जाते। These are the type of questions which are posed in the northern tradition, जैसे अजान अमरू ने मैं कई बार समझाया है इसके बारे में। तो उसी का उपयोग करते हुए मुझे लगा कि उससे मुझे लाभ हुआ था। तो आज अपने अनुभवों को, जो ट्रेडिशनल तरीका है डिपेंडेंट ओरिजिनेशन का, उसको उस तरह से कैसे हम उसको एनालाइज कर सकते हैं और उसके आधार पे कैसे हम अनात्म बोध को समझ सकते हैं, इसकी थोड़ी चर्चा करते हैं। जब हम पतित्य समुत्पाद को समझते हैं, उसके एक फैक्टर के हिसाब से देखते हैं, षडायतन पच्चया फस्स, फस्स पच्चया वेदना, वेदना पच्चया तन्हा, तन्हा पच्चया उपादान। तो हमारे सारे अनुभव जो इस वर्तमान काल में हो रहे हैं वो उसमें इन लिंक्स में आ जाते हैं और हम देख पाते हैं कि किस तरह से विभिन्न इंद्रियों के द्वारों पे हमारे विभिन्न प्रकार की वेदना हो रही है, प्लेजेंट, अनप्लेजेंट, न्यूट्रल। अगर हम उसको ठीक से समय रहते देख पाते हैं तो प्रतिक्रिया नहीं होती, नहीं देख पाते तो प्रतिक्रिया हो जाती है, फिर तृष्णा जाग जाती है या उपादान जाग जाता है। अगर और ख्याल न रखें और प्रपंच चलना शुरू हो जाए तो ये हर परिस्थिति में अप्लाई होता है, चाहे हम टॉक सुन रहे हैं, म्यूजिक सुन रहे हैं या खाना खा रहे हैं। माइंडफुल ईटिंग की हम पहले भी चर्चा कर चुके हैं कई बार कि उसमें तो सारे इंद्रियां काम करती हैं। तो इफ यू आर माइंडफुल यू कैन सी हाउ various dependent origination links work, how there is contact, how there is feeling arising, and then if you are not mindful how you can react to it. तो इस तरह की एनालिसिस करने से क्या फायदा होता है कि हमें मालूम पड़ता है कि जो प्रतिक्रिया हो रही है वो एक प्राकृतिक नियमों के अनुसार हो रही है, मैं प्रतिक्रिया नहीं कर रहा हूँ। अगर मुझे कठोर वचन सुने और मुझे गुस्सा आ गया तो इसका मतलब मैंने अप्रिय वेदना पे प्रतिक्रिया कर दी, और वो गुस्सा कोई मेरा पर्सनल गुस्सा नहीं है, वो कंडीशन से अराइज हुआ है। इसी तरह से अगर लोभ जागा, वासना जागी, तो वो भी उसी तरह से एक कंडीशन अराइजिंग वाली बात है। और उसकी कंडीशंस में बाहरी कंडीशंस भी हैं लेकिन अंतर की कंडीशंस भी हैं। ये एक महत्वपूर्ण बात हमको समझनी होती है कि गुस्सा अगर आ रहा है तो केवल बाहर की ट्रिगर्स पे नहीं है, मेरे भीतर भी उसका बीज समाहित है, मुझ में अनुशय क्लेश है द्वेष का, तो इसीलिए गुस्सा जाग रहा है। तो वो भी एक कंडीशन है। तो उससे फिर समझ में आता है कि जस्ट मेयर बेयर ऑब्जर्वेशन इज नॉट इनफ। अगर मुझे सेंस रेस्ट्रेंट नहीं है तो मैं उस गुस्सा जागा और मैंने उस पर रिएक्ट भी कर दिया, किसी से झगड़ा कर दिया, किसी को कड़वी बातें बोल दी, गाली गलौज हो गई, मारपीट हो गई। So you have to see that this kind of thing is happening basically because I'm not being mindful of the whole phenomena according to the law of dependent origination, जो बेसिकली दुख की उत्पत्ति का विस्तार से समझाता है हमको। और जब हम इस तरह का समझ रखते हैं कि मुझे गुस्सा आया और वो गुस्सा मेरा नहीं है, द्वेष मेरा नहीं है, या लोभ मेरा नहीं है, वासना मेरा नहीं है, तो प्रकृति से जागा है, तो उसमें एक कंफ्यूजन भी होने की बड़ी संभावना रहती है, बहुत गड़बड़ होने की संभावना रहती है कि हम इंद्रिय में अगर संवर नहीं है, इंद्रिय रेस्ट्रेंट नहीं है, तो उस गुस्से के कारण जो मैंने काम कर दिया, किसी को पीट दिया, किसी को मार दिया, गाली दे दी, तो मैं समझूंगा वो भी ठीक है, वो तो सामान्य प्रक्रिया है, तो उसमें मेरा क्या कसूर है। The anger is also impersonal and the action on it is also impersonal. Then there can be a real problem because we're then not understanding the conventional reality at all. So if somebody, you can understand it through a story of a Zen master probably. उनके दो शिष्य हैं और उनमें से एक शिष्य दूसरे की पिटाई कर देता है, उसको बुलाया जाता है, भाई क्या हुआ? सब मैंने तो कुछ नहीं किया, इसने ये कहा, मुझे गुस्सा आ गया, गुस्से के कारण पिटाई हो गई, तो मेरा तो कोई इसमें दोष है ही नहीं, I didn't do anything. So the Zen master took his stick and started beating him up and says, I'm not beating you up, I'm only beating the body because 5 khandas are not yours, so you don't have to worry. Now that's a way of teaching a person that there is something called conventional reality also. And you have to act in tune with the conventional realities also. We can't say कि गुस्सा आया और गुस्से में नहीं कर दिया तो मेरा कोई कसूर नहीं है. It's a very trivial example, but you can see how it can be extended. How we can justify our anger by the understanding of anatta in a very theoretical manner. ठीक है, गुस्सा आ गया, कुछ कह दिया, कोई बात नहीं, क्या फर्क पड़ता है. In conventional reality, the society expects us to have self-control, to follow ethical principles. और जो 5 में से 4 शील हैं वो तो समाज भी मानता है. पहले 4 शील तो समाज भी मानता है कि वो एथिकल प्रिंसिपल समाज में फॉलो होने चाहिए. आप चोरी करें, व्यभिचार करें, हत्या करें, झूठ बोल के किसी को ठगें, they are all taken as offenses under criminal code. So we need to have self-restraint. और अगर self-restraint नहीं है तो then the conventional reality will operate and appropriate action will have to be taken. So what will be the ultimate reality perspective? If a person is committing beating up somebody and doing it again and again, then rather than attributing it to the person, because when you're talking of ultimate reality, there is no person. It is essentially sankharas which are arising and passing away. और अगर कोई repeated offender है तो we understand, I think this person is in need for training on self-control. And that's what the prisons were meant for. Were meant to be reformation centers. And that's what we learned when we started a meditation center in Tihar jail, and with interaction with Kiran Bedi and other. बहुत clearly वो बात समझ में आने लगी कि especially जब पहला शिविर हुआ and I had to interact with those participants of the first course, all of whom were convicted of, and life convicts who were convicted of heinous crimes, murder, robbery, and so on. तो शुरू में तो दिक्कत होती थी, ये ऐसे है, वो ऐसे हैं. And then when we started, we had to write down their background for our first course. So we started writing background and understood कि जिसको हम मर्डर कह रहे हैं, तो it was just a flash of anger and he acted upon that anger and hit the person and all of his life is spoiled. So slowly we begin to see that it's not a person who's a murderer, it's basically the dynamics of the process which is happening in our being every moment. And if that process is not within control, then you can end up in some criminal action. So that really becomes a very important issue as to how we relate to the world. Do we see world as a conglomeration of persons or a series of processes. अगर हमें अनात्म बोध को पुष्ट करना है, then we have to see the world as a series of processes. Different processes happening due to different conditions. Conditioned arising of phenomena. Because if we take behavior personally, then Atta Bhava is already incorporated and all our responses will be accordingly. So you have to really reflect upon it in that sense. And that applies not just to prisoners, it applies to everybody. Our day-to-day behavior. Are we going to depersonalize the offenses of people or personalize the wrong behavior of people, or are we taking it, depersonalize it and see it in the light of the Dhamma? So all we can say for a person is that, well, this person has a strong tendency to break precepts and he's no self-control. Because what happens normally, we create a person, we create a sense of self. With respect to the other person, he's a liar, he's a cheat, he's a thief, वो तो हमेशा ही ऐसा करता है, वो तो ऐसा ही है. So instead of looking at the behavior as conditioned phenomena, we look at it and ascribe it to a person. And that's immediately the sense of self is created. And then it's not just that we create a self in the other person, we create a self in ourselves because it's automatic. That I am much better. Self-righteousness happens. And we don't even notice it. This such is the insidious nature of self that it arises, and we, मनी मान हमको लगता है शुक्र है, मैं तो बचा हूँ, मैं तो अच्छा हूँ. ये ऐसा है, ये बेईमानी में झूठ बोलता रहता है, कैसे चीट करता है, कोई सुनता नहीं है, मैं तो अच्छा हूँ. मैं कहूँगा नहीं, but it's implied. So that's the problem really of how we relate to the world, and we have to see that very, very, very carefully, especially with respect to wrong behavior of people and making them attribute to the person rather than to the situation and conditions, which would, of course, conditions include internal conditions, as I mentioned. So this is one way. Through dependent origination, we try to depersonalize. एक और तरीका क्या है depersonalize करने का, which is through, again, which is the extension of dependent origination. It is through seeing the interdependence of the whole existence, which is in a way extended version of Paticca Samutpada. That everything which is happening is due to certain conditions here and there. If somebody is becoming a criminal, large number of situations and other persons, if you want to take them, are responsible for it. Now that needs deep reflection really, and we can see that. And rather than getting into discussion on that, I thought it would be better if I read out to you a small poem, a part of the very famous book of Khalil Gibran called The Prophet. And there's a chapter on crime and punishment, which is absolutely, like other chapters, absolutely, insightful and deeply moving factors. So I'll just read out some parts of that. It's a long poem, which are very relevant to our discussion, so that we can reflect on it and see whether we really are able to see these facts of interdependence and related to dependent origination of phenomena. And as a single leaf turns not yellow, but with the silent knowledge of the whole tree, so the wrongdoer cannot do wrong without the hidden will of you all. So all of us are complicit. And then after some lines he says, and when one of you falls down, he falls for those behind him, a caution against the stumbling stone. Hey, he falls for those ahead of him, who though faster and surer of foot, yet remove not the stumbling stone. Then I'll again omit a number of lines. You cannot separate the just from the unjust and the good from the wicked. For they stand together before the face of the sun, even as the black thread and the white are woven together. And when the black thread breaks, the weaver shall look into the whole cloth, and he shall examine the loom also. And if any of you would punish in the name of righteousness and lay the axe unto the evil tree, let him see to its roots. And verily he will find the roots of the good and the bad, the fruitful and the fruitless, all entwined together in the silent heart of the earth. So this is the view from the ultimate reality perspective on interdependence. It doesn't cancel out the conventional reality perspective, but it gives us another opportunity to see the perspective of from the ultimate reality perspective, how they're just phenomena. They're not people who are there. They're all so strongly interrelated that what an action a person does is governed by so many other people around him. So much of interdependence exists in the society. And we can see it. If there's poverty and social injustice in the society, I may say I don't directly do anything about that. But my silence about these issues is also a consent. So we need to really deeply reflect upon it, because it puts a lot of quote-unquote burden on our conscience. Now this was from the point of view of unwholesome actions. Let's take it from the point of view of wholesome actions before I close. When you do social service or even Dhamma service, what is the conventional reality perspective? In most of the people who do social service, who are activists, they get moved by the suffering in the society, which creates unpleasant feeling, and they wish to ameliorate this. It motivates them to ameliorate the situations responsible for the suffering. But there is a sense of self there. So one moment you have compassion, you have action to relieve the suffering. Another moment, since self is there, I think these people should be taught a lesson who are responsible for this social inequality. So the industrialists are the people who are sucking the blood of the working class. So we should teach them a lesson. And you must have noticed, as I have, and I've had personal experience with certain very strong groups who did enormously good social service, but resulted in an enormous increase in sense of self and made the people highly egotistic, bitter, angry, and increased them hatred in them and for the others. And the sense of self inflated because of self-righteousness. And eventually, at least two groups I knew personally, they splintered because of the egos arising of one person. I did more work than you, you did less work, and that kind of a thing. What would have been an ultimate reality perspective? When you see suffering, you understand there's a cosmic order. It's law of karma operating. And we chant it every day. Why do we chant it? Not to make us heartless, but to understand and to maintain equanimity. It's not to ignore the wrongdoings of others, but to maintain equanimity. What is happening is within the laws of the universe. And when we maintain equanimity, we develop Brahma Vihara. It's always accompanied by metta, it's always accompanied by karuna. And appropriate action flows without bitterness, hatred towards others, those who are apparently responsible for that. It doesn't mean to do no action in that direction. Panya really would promote compassion even for them, and appropriate based on sati and panya would arise. So I've always wondered why most of these activists, whether they are environmental activists or social activists trying to take care of caste problems, take care of the other health issues of people, deprived people, why do they get up so angry and extremely self-righteous people? Basically because they look at it totally from a conventional reality, self-based perspective. And if you look at it from ultimate reality perspective, the sense of self will take back seat. It will actually increase in compassion, increase in panya. So even when we do good actions, even when we are doing social service, be very careful, because there's a statement which I have quoted a few times from the Patthana in the Dhamma. Kushalo Dhammo, Akushalasya Dhammasya Upanissaya Pachena Pachyo. You do a wholesome deed, and that can become the proximate cause of an unwholesome deed. And then the examples are given. You do Uposatha, you do follow Shila, you do Dana, and then you raise your ego. I did it. Oh, what a wonderful Dani I am. What a wonderful person I am. I follow precept. These people don't follow precepts. And all kinds of unwholesome actions emanate from that sense, the inflated ego. So even wholesome action, social service, and even Dhamma service can lead to that kind of a sin. I've seen it happen myself in many situations. So looking at the conventional reality and ultimate reality, that's why we say, though we understand anatta, we respect conventional reality, but we don't forsake the ultimate reality. And based on that, the actions are done. So we have that's what is meant by when we say living in the world, but not of the world. And that's how the atta bhav takes a back seat. It doesn't come into picture. So looking at people as actions of people as persons, and then forgetting the ultimate reality perspective is another reason why the sense of atta keeps on creeping into our life very, very stealthily without even our realizing that our wholesome actions are giving rise to an atta. I think we have time there, so we'll take leave and request you, and let's reflect on what I have said, especially about the interdependence and the issue of a single leaf not becoming yellow without the consent of the whole tree. You can easily see its implications in us from the societal point of view. And the fact that even wholesome actions can become a cause of atta if you don't keep the ultimate reality perspective in mind. Thank you.